Okay, welcome everyone. This is my trial run. I've done a webinar sort of for an information session, but this is actually my first time trying to do a training online. So let's hope that it works out. First, I wanted to So I'm going to ask you verbally. I have a question in mind, but mainly I wanted to start off just asking, based on the description we sent out of this webinar, if folks have some particular types of tools or categories of tools that you are more interested in, so that I can try to adjust it slightly. So I'll let you guys type those in and I'll look at them. Meanwhile, I was gonna ask you all where you're from, but I have this sheet, so I'm just gonna show that for a second. Okay, understanding the Google Docs. So this gives you a sense. We've got a combination of some graduate students in our program, some Northeastern staff, and some community folks. So welcome everyone. I'm going to hide that. Give you a chance to finish typing what you're entering. Why don't I go ahead and start, and I'll try to multitask and read some of the comments as they come in and adjust to it. Okay. So the first category that I wanted to cover included, and some of you have commented on this, Google Docs and Forms and Dropbox and so on. Then I'm going to cover email broadcasts, and then lastly websites, but with a particular emphasis on WordPress. Okay. Before I get into that, though, I wanted to put in a plug. There's this great resource called Idealware. It's actually an organization, and they have a website. They do all kinds of research and analysis and reports on different technology solutions. For instance, you might have heard of 10 or 11 different things that do the same thing, and how do you know which one to choose, and so on. They do a lot of studies that show that. I'm gonna go back and forth between this PowerPoint here and actually my screen. Will we be able to copy this webinar? Yes, you will. Okay, so okay. I am probably not going to post this recorded webinar because for a second there, unless a lot of you have probably, I am going to click full screen in a second. A lot of you have probably used Google Docs, right? So I'm going to just browse around, show you a form and a few other things. Okay, full screen. I can't go to other stuff. Okay, so this is what it looks like on the inside of a Google Doc section. You'll see that this is not my Google Doc account for my personal use. This is our professional, our one that we have for the Dukakis Center. And for the most part, in our case, we've been using them for a lot of forms. You'll see the green thing. The green represents a form. In a second, I'll click on one of these. I'll click on this one that you all have used already. So it looks like a spreadsheet, right? It's pretty similar to the Excel version of a Google Doc, except the difference is this is a form, and here I'm gonna show you what it looks like to go on the back end of a form and edit it. This is how you create a form or edit a form. And each one of these is a question, which you can edit. You can duplicate. I'm going to get rid of that. So you can create all of these questions. And then you can either send the link to the form, or as we've done, we embedded this into a website, which means you basically just copy this code and paste it in to a website on the HTML side. So I'm going to close that. One of the advantages of doing a Google form versus if you have a website that, or maybe you don't have a website, in which case a Google form is really helpful. But you can take the results, you can, just like with any Google Doc, you can have this be shared. So let's say that you're in an organization with a handful of officers and you'd like to have every officer have access to the RSVP list directly. You can take that form and click share and add people to that Google form. And then when they log into Google Docs, they will see that form in their list of documents. So let's see, I'm going to go back over to here and just pause and see if there are any questions so far about Google Docs. You can type them in if you have any questions. Okay. Some of you mentioned knowing about other Google tools. I wasn't planning to cover too much of it, except to say that one of the other tools that we use a lot of are Google Groups. It's weird they don't normally just leave it here as one of the main. Oops. I didn't realize I'm still on the. Let's see. Separate Google account. I'm reading Laura's question right now. Yeah, we created an organizational account for the Dukakis Center just so that it's not tied to any one individual. And for the most part, when I'm at work, I'm logged into that Google account. So is my co-op Will and others that access the system. I'm trying to figure out how to get back to screen share. Shoot, it's still on the PowerPoint. I'm trying to get back to where I'm. Oh, there it is. It looked funny. Is it this? No. I'm trying to get back to showing you my browser. Okay, we're back. Let's see. I'm gonna try to see. I don't know how many groups I have registered in this Dukakis. Under this. Oops, it's just searching inside of Google Docs. I'm trying to get back out to groups. So these are just in case you've never looked at this, all the many Google tools that there are. Not really many. I'm going to log out of the Dukakis Center account, log into my own, and be prepared to potentially be a little bit overwhelmed by the number of Google groups that I have. I'm going to just scroll through some of them. There are some that other people have created and I just joined, some that I've created, some that are used for organizations that I volunteer with. And then you'll see a whole bunch that say NEU MBA. A few years ago I did an MBA, and out of the 20 required courses, 18 of them had group projects. So for every single group project, I created a Google group. And I'll just click on one of them. And you'll see we had 124 messages over that semester. Sometimes we had a lot more frequency, a lot more messages, 372 there. The advantage of using a Google group as opposed to trying to is that you don't have to remember everybody's email address every time you send the email. The other thing is that it captures all of the correspondence. So in your inbox, you can be really quick to delete a lot of stuff to keep your inbox clean, knowing that all of the messages got captured, and you can access them by going to the Google Group website. Okay. Are there any other questions about Google? I know it's a little bit short. Maybe we could do a longer thing on Google at some point in the future. Okay. I'm going to move on to Dropbox. The first, and actually file sharing in general. First I heard of, the first file sharing thing I heard of was Carbonite. And it sounded like a pretty good deal. It's like, I don't know, $60 or so, $59. And it's an automatic backup system. But then I learned about Dropbox, which is free up to a certain amount of memory, and then you get more memory if you refer and get a few other friends to join up to a certain amount. One of the interesting things about Dropbox and Carbonite and others that are like that is that your documents are stored on your computer in the cloud in your Dropbox account. And then if you use a second or third computer and have it synced up with your Dropbox, it's stored there as well. So the advantage of that is, let's say you're going up to the mountains to do some writing, and all of a sudden you discover that where you're staying doesn't have internet access. It's nice to have all your documents in your computer itself and not be totally dependent on the cloud. The other thing is that it's constantly always syncing. So you don't have to worry about it. It's a backup system. And then you can also do things which you can share a folder with other people. So I'm going to click on this shared folder. Recently, a couple of our grad students participated in the Greater Boston Affordable Housing Development Competition, and they were paired up with other grad students from Harvard Graduate School of Design. So together they created this folder, or maybe I did. These are all the subfolders inside that folder. It was really great that they could use this as a shared thing. Just shows you all this great stuff. There are pros and cons, I suppose, between Dropbox and Carbonite and other similar ones. Dropbox seems to be spreading more, I guess, virally based on their free memory up to a certain amount kind of deal. It encourages people to get their friends to join, because then you'll get more memory for every up to 8 people that you refer. If you need more memory than that free allotment includes, then I'm trying to see if I can go to the main page. I guess there's not as much information on their main page as is on Carbonite. Oh, I did want to also show you what it looks like on my computer. This is my Dropbox folder, and it looks exactly like what my Dropbox folder looks like when I'm logged into Dropbox. Okay, so I'm going to go back here and see if there are any questions or comments. Laura added that it has a smartphone app, which can be useful. So I suppose that means you can access your Dropbox account from your smartphone, which is a great and useful thing. Okay. If I go back to here, okay. I am going to move on now. You all ready to move on to, oh, there's a new BoxNet. I am not sure. I'm not familiar with BoxNet. I have tried, you may be able to see it here. Maybe you can't. I have tried iDrive and ForShared and a bunch of other stuff. It just seems like lately, almost every group that I work with, other people have Dropbox accounts, so it's kind of the advantage of them being the market leader. You know, there might be some cool social media thing out there that's not Facebook, but most people are going to primarily use Facebook as their #1 sold. So it's kind of like that Dropbox is emerging with that market leader advantage. And I see you commented about Google Drive. I suppose that shares that's maybe some more advanced version compared to Google Docs, where it's a folder instead of just the way the traditional Google Docs have worked. Anyways, I recommend, at least if you don't have anything right now, try Dropbox, and you can always, continue to explore other kinds of tools. I'm gonna go back to here. Your screen is. So the next thing I wanted to cover were email broadcast systems. Probably all of you by now have received an email that was sent through an email broadcast system. And what that means is sort of bulk or mass emails. When you, whenever an organization or an individual needs to send an email to a lot of people, it helps to use a system rather than just trying to send from your personal email account. Plus, a lot of email providers like Gmail, Hotmail, whatever, have limits on the total number of people you can email in a single message. Sometimes it's 250 or 400 or 500. Those of you that are at Northeastern may not realize that Northeastern has a limit. The most number of people you can email in a single message from a Northeastern account is 250 people. And it may not even tell you that. Like if you tried to email 500 people, it might appear to you that it went through, when in fact it either didn't go through or it only went through to 250 of them. So we went through a process of trying to decide which system to use. Constant Contact is a local company. A lot of people use it. It seems to be the market leader based on the emails that I receive. Even a lot of departments at Northeastern use it. And it has advantages and disadvantages. Plus it's a local company, which if that matters to you in terms of supporting a local company, then Constant Contact is the way to go. They each have strengths and weaknesses, and for a variety of reasons I ended up not picking Constant Contact. I examined several of them. There's Exact Target, Constant Contact, MailChimp, Vertical Response. And by the way, remember earlier I mentioned Idealware? They've done a seminar in the past, which I don't know if it's recorded. I think it's recorded. Yeah. They did a webinar on how to choose a broadcast email tool. So that's worth checking out. Most of these email systems charge a monthly fee, and it's based on how many email addresses are stored in your account. So the more you have, the more monthly fee you pay. Vertical Response offers that payment method now, but historically they were different from the others in that instead of charging by the month based on the size of your address book, they actually charge based on your usage. So if you think of an email credit as every message times everybody that you sent it to, they charged based on that. I'm going to show you this. Eventually, though, they began to also offer the same method that every other one did of a standard monthly thing. This is a little more complicated than I thought it would be. But then the biggest advantage of Vertical Response for everyone who works in a nonprofit is that they have a nonprofit deal where they give you 10,000 email credits per month. And most of you will probably never need more than 10,000 messages a month. But if you do, you can always buy more. So I'm going to log in here to our account. And just browse around and show you a few things. So This is the dashboard, and it shows you some of the recent emails. These are the draft emails that are not yet sent, or not yet finished. These are some reports, particularly for recently sent emails. And you can see that it gives you some useful information like how many got sent, how many you sent it to, what percentage opened it, what percentage clicked on it, the percentage of those emails that bounced, and so on. And if you want more detail, oops, I'm trying to click on that. It's a little slow. I'm not sure whether that's on our end or their end or somewhere in between. But this is the level of detail that you get about each email that you send. So that shows, I sent an email earlier this week, and almost 2,500 people opened it. It had a really, this is considered to be a pretty good response rate of, or an open rate, 31%. Had 279 clicks. Because I sent it to so many, we did get a number of bounces. That means that their email address is either no longer good, or their email server at the time was down and bounced it back. Once a vertical response gets an indication that an email address is bouncing, it no longer sends to that email address unless you go in there manually and debounce it. And then 34 people out of, what did I send it to? 8,000, 7,000? 34 people unsubscribed. And then you have a number of variety of range of things you can do, like you can make a copy of that email if you wanted to start with the previous email and then just change the content so you don't have to start recreate the whole thing from scratch. Okay, I'm going to go back here. So these are the emails, and these are lists. I'm going to click on lists. If it's helpful, I can log into later. I can log into an account that's not used so much, because this could look overwhelming, and most accounts probably don't look this crazy. We have nearly 42,000 email addresses, and they're broken up into 148 lists. That's just page one. An email account can be on multiple lists. So, for instance, I'm going to click on faculty, urban researchers. This is kind of an old list. It needs some updating. And it shows all the people that belong to it. And then I can go see, for Joan Fitzgerald, what are all the lists that I have her included in? So I include her on the LPP students list so that she gets copied on all of that. I should include her on anything sent to alumni. Let's see. You can see there are a variety of things that are clicked for her: LPP core faculty, MERP faculty, all faculty. I think there's one, I'm going to add her to the policy school board, policy school staff. So that's what it takes to edit the list that somebody is on. You can also, using a thing called segments, combine lists, create custom lists. You can make a list based on response rates in the past. For instance, you could even create a list. You could download from a previous email the list of everybody who did not open the email, create a new list based on that, and send the very same email to them again. So it's sort of like a reminder sent to everybody that didn't open it the first time. Any questions so far? I'm going to just peek here. Okay. Now I'm going to just show you what the inside of an email looks like when you're creating it. We primarily use a certain version. I'll cover that in a second, but here, this is how you create an email in here. On the graphic side, you just type stuff in here and use all these tools to format. If there's something that you can't figure out how to do with the tools and you know HTML, you can change it here. And then it always automatically creates a text version if you have that clicked, in case that email is arriving at an email server that can't handle HTML and graphics and all that. Okay, I'm going to go back out of this. When you create a new email, I'm just going to do this to show you what it looks like when you're creating a new email. You actually have these 4 choices of how you want to do it. And some of it's self-explanatory, like this is the easiest, it has a lot of built-in stuff. This is more flexible. This is if you have a bunch of whole thing designed already somewhere else and want to just paste in the HTML. And this is if you want to just create a plain, regular old text email. Okay. I think those are the main things I wanted to cover on vertical response before showing you what it looks like as well. They're all of these email broadcast systems have similar functionality when you're in. The main difference is how you actually do things. And once you get used to a particular system, another system might take a lot of getting used to. For instance, this is MailChimp, which is also pretty good. And I think if you have less than 2,000 email addresses in your address book, you can have a free account regardless of whether you're a nonprofit. And it's up to 12,000 email credits per month. It's I'm not as used to working on this, but I'm sure if someone were, it would seem just as easy as vertical response does to me. We're actually logged into the MailChimp account for my kids' PTO. And a really interesting thing that's set up with this is that it's connected. It has a whole bunch of automatic emails that get generated based on what gets posted on that PTO website. So this has, in other words, emails that have an RSS feed and automatic schedule. So if there are new posts on the website, it generates emails that automatically go out. So the interesting thing is our PTO, nobody ever actually logs into this except for me once in a while. Everything's on autopilot. The only thing that the PTO officers need to do is put updates on their website, and then automatically this thing generates emails based on that. Just checking over here for the questions. Okay. Any more questions on email broadcasts? Some are fancier and have more capabilities. Oh, I should say that one of the limitations of vertical response is that when the email goes out, who it is sent from, you can control. I'm going to see if I can find one here. I'm looking for an example of when it gets sent out. Here we go. So you can see here that although it says it came from the School of Public Policy and Urban Affairs, this email address is not a real one here at Northeastern. It's a vertical response one. That's one of the biggest limitations of vertical response. With other systems, there can be an actual real email address listed here instead of one that ends in the URL of the vendor of the broadcast system. The other thing is, if someone wants to adjust which list they're on, they can't really do that with vertical response, and they can with certain other lists where, let's say they click unsubscribe and then it takes them to a window. I don't have a good example, but it takes them to a window where instead of just completely unsubscribing, it shows them which lists they're on and which lists they're not on, and they can adjust it. Because sometimes people have, let's say I sent out an email about the Open Classroom series, and it went to a faculty member, and they're like, I don't want this. So then they click unsubscribe. Then if they're unsubscribed, they won't get any emails whatsoever sent from our account. Okay. I think I'm going to move on now. I'm going to check a little bit. What is RSS feed? Good question. I'm not an expert on it, but it's a method of subscribing to a website that has that enabled so that any changes made to the website get fed to you in whatever, and you usually use something where you read the RSS feeds. I don't currently take advantage of that, so I'm not that well versed in. But the main point is that it's possible to have an email broadcast system have an RSS subscription to a website and automatically generate emails based on changes to the website. Okay. Oh, the one last thing I wanted to show you was, and this is the URL for the page where you would apply for a vertical response nonprofit account. I filled it out because I need to apply for a new one for an organization on whose board I serve. And then at some point they'll send an email saying, send us a copy of your 501c3 status. So I got that. Okay. Now I'm going to move on to websites. Many universities have a department on campus that helps various departments and programs and organizations set up websites that are not that complicated or fancy. At Northeastern, that department is called the EdTech Center, Education Technology Center. They used to have, or years ago, they created a web content management system, and a lot of departments were on it. It was very useful and handy at the time, but then after a while, it began to seem limiting. They began to switch people to WordPress. We, in the policy school and Dukakis Center, started looking at all the different options. And I just want to show you how overwhelming this can be. I came across a blog entry once that said 50 website content management systems. And then at the end of that, in the comment section, all these people kept suggesting, what about this? What about this? And then the guy created a revised posting called 102 content management systems. Every single one of these is a tool that allows you to manage a website. And we actually spent some bit of time looking into these. I even thought about, wouldn't that be funny if we had one called Goodberry? We looked into a lot of these, and it just became overwhelming. They all have their pros and cons. Some of them are, let's see, was this the fun one? Watch this one. This one is crazy. I mean, crazy flexible. Watch. I'm going to unlock the page. This is how you edit the website. You can move stuff around like that. Isn't that crazy how flexible that is? And then when you're done, you click lock. And then, so anyways, that's just one example. But then every time we thought we found a great one, we would come across some key function that it didn't have, like the ability to have documents that you could download or something very obvious like that. So after all this searching, we ended up coming to the conclusion that we should use WordPress. WordPress was originally created as a tool to support bloggers, but it has become a really fast-growing, popular tool for managing websites, whether or not they have blog functions. So I'm just going to show you a couple websites and what it looks like behind the scenes when you're logged in as the admin. So here's the Policy School website. And when you log in, it looks like this. You'll see every WordPress website looks similar for the most part, depending on what things you add. So that thing on these entries here are called posts, and you can see all of the posts that we have. You can create a new one. I'm just going to open an existing one. And it's pretty easy to use. You just put the title in there, the text in here. You have all these tools. You click on various categories. You can add an image. This featured image relates to the image that shows here. So that's a post. And then you publish it. And of course, there are pages. You can create as many pages as you want. You can put them in a particular order as well. I'm just quickly going through this because we could actually do a whole webinar just on WordPress training. And there's a lot of great tools out there. You could probably find in a few quick minutes on a Google search videos that have been recorded about how to do every possible thing in WordPress. This media, that's the folder for where you store all your images and documents. What else is useful? Okay, so that's, and then the other thing that here are a couple real advantages of WordPress. One is that there's a thing called a WordPress theme. You might think of it as a template. It's a design along with certain functions. And you can browse around. I'm going to go to a draft website because I don't want to mess around with the Policy School one. So here is a website for a student organization. It hasn't really been fully developed, so I can play around without too much risk here. Now the back end looks a little bit different. So if you wanted to change the look and feel, or the template and the functions of it, you could look for or upload another theme. Like let's say we wanted that theme. Oops. You can even see what it would look like, what your website would look like. Oops, maybe that didn't really do it well. I'm gonna actually install one of these. Install now. Preview. So you can see what your website would look like under this new theme. I am not going to activate it because I didn't particularly like that. So you can browse around inside WordPress looking for themes, or you could also, oh wait, I actually have a bunch of those open here. Is it? See, if you Google WordPress themes, you get all this. It's almost overwhelming. Remember the 102 content management systems? This is even more overwhelming in a way. But when you look at the average cost of a lot of these, they're almost always under $100, and you could get a really fantastic looking website, WordPress theme. Here's another thing where someone reviewed different themes. Here's another thing, 50 free WordPress themes. And if you pick one that looks really professional and really nice, they usually take about less than 5 minutes to install. Here's another one, 133, and so on. I'm going to check if there's any questions. This was also done in Word. This was that PTO website that I mentioned. The MailChimp has an RSS feed too. So every time a new post gets put in, it gets read by the email thing. This is the back end of that. This shows you how fancy you can get while still being in WordPress, because this was all done in WordPress as well. This one was done by a custom designer though, so it's pretty fancy. And then, of course, one that some of you at least are familiar with. This was done in WordPress. And then we use the same basic theme to do the LPP one, as well as the MPA one. Oops, we gotta update some stuff here. Okay. There's even, trying to see where, WordPress.com. You can even get a free WordPress account at WordPress.com. Normally, if you want to, now when I say free, it usually means that you won't have complete control over your URL unless you pay extra for it. So here we have a little blog that we created, and it ends with WordPress.com. If we wanted to pay more, we could get a custom URL, but for now, we weren't doing that. I'm trying to figure out how I can actually get to it. Oops. So this is a WordPress website that is free. It's based at WordPress.com. We were in the process of moving it to a Northeastern server so that we can have our own URL for free. And if you aren't at Northeastern, or you want to create a website that's not related to Northeastern, almost every major web hosting company has WordPress as an option, so that it can be hosted there. Let's see. And then I wanted to also mention Blogcom. That's a free, I think it's owned by Google now. And oops, they're busy. But when you logged into blog.com, you'll see that it's based on WordPress. The interface is similar. So you can create a free blog at blog.com. There are a number of other places too, like blogs, I think blogspot.com. In fact, if you just did free blog, you'll get a number of options for places where you can have a free website. Okay, so we have, well, maybe just a few minutes left. I wanted to see if any folks have questions. Really used my browser and went through a lot of different pages. Maybe I'll try to update the PowerPoint with a few links in it, and that might be helpful. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you all for participating, and it was useful for me too as I kind of get my own legs on how to actually do a webinar and share my screen and make sure I don't have a document of passwords open and that kind of stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. This is my email address, and a lot of you have it anyways, and I will see you around. We may, as soon as I figure out when I'm going to do the next one, which would probably be on more in-depth on WordPress, I will let you all know. Thanks. Bye-bye.